Hey everybody, JJ here. Welcome back for another Wednesday of Zoom networking. I am back from a three week hiatus. 3 week, yeah, that's right. Anyhow, thrilled to be back. Thrilled to see familiar faces. Our guest speaker today is an unbelievably phenomenal guy. Someone I've gotten recently been able to get to know is out of the Sub 2 program with Pace Morby. If you guys don't know Pace Morby, as I like to say, you're living under a rock. But Pace has one of the premier real estate education programs in the country. Look him up on Instagram, look him up on LinkedIn, look him up on YouTube. He's out there, he's everywhere. Pace Morby Sub 2 community. Our guest speaker is one of the rock stars out of Sub 2, young man that leads by example, is visible, uses social media, and is a success. One of my good friends, Mr. Creighton Bertrand. Creighton, how you doing, my friend?
I am amazing, truly blessed. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, hey, man, it is a pleasure to have you here. When I got into Sub 2 10 months ago, you were one of the first names that I constantly saw on social media.
Wow.
And, for those of us that are new real estate investors, we see the people that are out there. Those are the people that we want to connect with. And I'm thrilled and honored to have you on my Zoom call.
Wow.
Let me ask a couple of things before we get into this.
Yeah.
How'd you get into real estate investment?
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, I got into real estate. I think it was maybe in 2016, I want to say. And I was working at my W-2 at the time was Boeing, and I was an engineer. I went to school for mechanical engineering. And I kind of had the aha. I think I'd been working for maybe 3 years at that point, that I was never going to be making the money that I wanted for the lifestyle that I wanted to do the things that I wanted with the money I was getting. So I was like, okay, well, I'm a big person of control. So I was like, okay, well, how can I take control of the situation and find a way to make more money? So then I started to look into investing. I did stocks. I did okay doing stocks, trading, stuff like that. But I didn't like that it was so cyclical and so hands-on. And that's when I started to research about other ways to invest. And that's when I found real estate, and I bought my first duplex I'm in Seattle, Washington, out in Eastern Washington, back in, yeah, I want to say it was like 2016. If you want my real estate journey is, so I got into buy and holds right from the get-go, rentals. Started to do rentals. I think me and some buddies, we got together. We had, I think, maybe like 200, 250, something like that, 1,000 to disperse. So we bought a bunch of properties, bought a bunch of rentals. Then we ran out of capital. And it was rather than, finding out how to get more private money, which is what I wish I would have done. But I saw the shiny object of wholesaling and get money quick, get money instantly. So I jumped in to wholesaling. I think our first year we acquired 7 properties. We flipped, I think, all but one. So all 7 properties we flipped them ourselves here in Seattle. So we did that. Then after doing that, we realized how much work it is to do flips, how much time it takes, all that stuff. And that's when we decided to kind of focus more of the buy and holds. We bought properties in Illinois, properties down in Alabama. And that's my preference. It's a little more hands off, not as involved as, scaling a full wholesaling business. And back to your original question of how I got into Sub 2 was when I was wholesaling. We were coming across so many properties that, people wanted to sell, but as a wholesale, it didn't make sense. And I remember at the time talking to my partner, like, hey, man, there's got to be a way to help these people out and find the solution. I'm a big person, I think, because of my engineering background. Like, there's always a solution. There's always a way to fix a problem. Maybe it's something people haven't done yet or whatever, but I want to always know, how can I solve it? And then decide if I actually want to do that, even if it's something crazy. So that's when I started to research more. And then I found out about Sub 2 and how you could help these people out via Sub 2. So that's how I found Pace and got into that. And I'm so grateful for the community for everything that is in Sub 2 is absolutely amazing.
I'm investing back east in Ohio. You're
Okay.
in the Seattle area, correct?
Yeah, I actually used to, my wife and I met down, I was living in Hermosa. She was in Torrance. So I've lived in LA for about 4 years. So, yeah, actually, it's funny because when we're down there, I was engineering um, at Vought is what it was at the time, right next to SpaceX. And anyway, I was there and my wife and I got married and we wanted to buy a house. And that's how we came up to Seattle because the prices in LA were so high. I was like, oh, I get paid the same to live in Seattle. And at the time, traffic and prices were so much better here in Seattle. So that's how we came up here. But now, I mean, we're just as bad as you are now, JJ. Like our prices, I mean, a single family house here, I mean, in a decent area is going to be, 700, 800,000.
For those that aren't aware of the topic, why are you investing in other states?
Cash flow. I mean, it all depends. So, I mean, that could be a whole different Zoom if you want to talk about that on,
Well,
you got to know what your investing journey is going to look like, what you're trying to accomplish. So, if you're at the very beginning, you need cash, right? I mean, wholesaling probably works out good, getting assignment fees, stuff like that. But if you have capital and you're okay just getting passive, then you can do the buy and hold route. I have buddies that invest here in Seattle because they do not care about getting passive income on a month-to-month basis. They are literally just parking their money. So they put their money here in Seattle, kind of like a bank. So you buy a property for 800,000, you cash flow zero because the mortgage and rents are the same. That's one of the big things that I always look at in a market is my ratio of rent to mortgage. I want it to be double. That's how I picked Eastern Washington, is because the mortgage rates over there at the time, I think was like 600, and I knew I could rent it out for like 1200. So to me, it's like, oh, okay, cash flow was a big thing for me. But back to here in Seattle, my buddies here will buy, they don't care about cash flow, but they are banking in 2 years that $800,000 property is now going to be worth close to 1 million. And that's where they're making their money. And if you can afford to do that, do it. That's what all the geniuses, all the rich people are doing. No offense, JJ, but us poor schmucks,
yeah,
we're the ones out there buying in these different, I'll say, markets where you're not going to get as much appreciation, but you're going to get the cash flow. And I don't know if you want me to ruin this for everyone, but cash flow is boring. It's not sexy. It's not fast. It's slow. It takes a long time. So when you go into it, know that. Like, I mean, I think my duplex at the end of the year, after it's all said and done, once I take out all of my proceeds, my actual net is, I think it's like $6,000 or $8,000 total. So you're not going to be retiring anything fast off of $6,000 a year.
yeah,
So you have to have so many properties. And the best way to get a lot of properties is you need a lot of capital to be putting 20% down on each property. So you need to be raising a lot of private capital.
private
And
capital is one of my favorite topics. We can talk about that another time.
yeah.
But with no further ado, my friend, I'm going to check out and I'm going to say, let's get into your topic. And Creighton, take it away.
So this is definitely going to be uh, a mindset shift. I know we're just talking about numbers and markets and investing, but for me, what I found everything in my life, actually, why I quit engineering and dealing with numbers is to get into feelings and coaching and helping people, find their true passion, helping them, deal with their obstacles, all these things. So I actually quit my engineering to do coaching as a full time. So that's my profession now. And I still do real estate as things come up and I get private money and want to take down more stuff. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. And that's what brings me in today is to actually just talk about mindset. So yeah, I want to talk to you guys about how to use your mind and body. Obviously, Sean knows it, so thanks for rehearsing with me, Sean. Because I found again, everything in life always comes down to habits and your mindset. So hopefully, I can give you guys some tips. Whether I'm assuming everyone in here is looking for real estate, but maybe there'll be some takeaways here that you can use, in any aspect of your life, whether it's fitness or communication, whatever. It's up to you to decide. Um, so here we are. So first of all, I want to thank JJ for letting me be in here and for you guys being in here today and giving me some of your most valuable resource, obviously your time. I'm not sure how you all found me and how you got here, but I'm so grateful that you're giving me a chance, and hopefully most of you here are on your own free will. My goal is to try and share, my knowledge, mistakes, mistrials, research with you to help you find ways to develop, habits that will actually stick. So I know that's all good and dandy, but in order to trust me, I know I need to tell you a little bit about me. I know we just talked a little bit, but there's a little more background. Is obviously my name's Creighton. I know JJ said he's out in the Midwest, but I was actually named after the college in Omaha, Nebraska. And the story goes that my dad owed the university so much money that he had to give up his first son just to pay for tuition. But he did go to school there, and I was named after it. So I grew up in a small town of about 2,000 people out in Eastern Oregon. Graduated, got my mechanical engineering degree from Oregon State. Spent 13 years doing engineering, aerospace. It was about probably 8 years ago that I had it all on the outside, at least. I had the six-fig job. I had a great house. I had an amazing wife, beautiful newborn, but I just felt so empty and numb on the inside. Everyone was telling me I should just be happy of what I had and, just be grateful. So that's when I started to get fixated on understanding these thoughts and feelings and, trying to figure out a way to control them. I just didn't want to feel numb anymore, basically, is what it came down to. So fast forward 8 years, countless books, courses, coaches, therapists, retreats. I now have a pretty good understanding of these thoughts, feelings, emotions, habits, and behaviors, and kind of how they all work together. When I originally started, I wanted to know how to control them all, but I've found out that's not really possible, at least not yet. So maybe Elon will find a way after he inhabit bars. Who knows? But until then, I'm okay with just understanding how they work and know there's nothing wrong with any of us. We're all just a product of our environment and learned behaviors. So, who am I now? I am a professional performance and life coach. I work with driven professionals and help them find a way to stay motivated and crush their goals. I have three amazing children, Kyla, Jackson, and Aaliyah. My beautiful wife, Fernandez from Brazil, and I couldn't be luckier to have her in my life. My passion is helping people to find their true potential and, realize things are not the key to happiness. Sorry for ruining it for you guys, but the key to happiness is being present and grateful for today, not once you have a thing. But I know that's not what you guys are here to listen about. So let's get into how to build habits to get you what you actually want. So right off the gate, let's, figure out what a habit is. A habit is just a habit, right? Well, to me, a habit is what you do without thinking. It's something that takes a little effort or energy to complete and something that's, actually hard to give up because it's such an ingrained part of you or part of your day. Think of things like brushing your teeth, eating, getting dressed. These are all, basic habits that we have. However, there also is a dark set of habits. These would be your habits to check your social media, watch Netflix, sit around the house, eat unhealthy foods, stuff like that. Basically, anything we do without thinking or effort, good or bad, is essentially a habit. So, why are these habits so important? Well, your habits will determine your future. And I love this quote. I forgot the book or person, but I remember someone stating that you can tell who will be successful by finding out their daily habits. And I mean, this is so true, especially when you're trying to grow or develop a new skill. Like what you do every day will determine who you become years later. So let's take a look at, just a few habit examples here. So here's an example. Let's say you are given 100 rocks every day to displace. So you decide you want to take the rocks and make 100 piles of one rock high. So at the end of the day, what do you have? Well, from the looks of it, you have 100 piles of one rock high. So essentially, you have gravel. Congratulations. Now, let's say the second day, you decide you want to do things a little different. So you decide to change it up. So today, instead of taking the same 100 rocks and just making gravel, you make 3 piles. So each pile gets about 33 rocks. Yeah, I know someone out there is going to say, well, one pile gets 34. That's true. Just bear with me. At the end of the day, what do you essentially have? You have 3 piles of rocks that are 33 high. Okay. One last example is, let's say on the very last day, you decide you want to change it again. You weren't as happy with the results of the last few days. You didn't feel like you've done enough. So you decide that you want to put all your effort on one pile. So you take all of your rocks and you put them in one pile. So at the end of the day, you have a big pile of rocks. You're proud of yourself. You're happy with your accomplishment. Yay, you did it. But so which one's right? I mean, who knows? This is just an example I made up, but the key takeaway is, a habit is essentially up to you to decide if it's good or bad. So back to the rock example, if you were supposed to put out gravel, then the first option was probably the best habit, right? But if your job was to build a stack of rocks, then clearly the last option to put them all in one pile was the best habit for that goal. So, since a habit is just a set of actions you do every day, it's up to you to decide if the habit's actually good or bad. So, some might say, watching Netflix every day is bad. But what if you only watch documentaries about someone you want to be more like? Then is that such a bad habit? So, I challenge you to notice what you do every day and start to notice all the things you do, without thinking, then start to identify if these things you are doing are actually something you want to continue to do, or if you want to change these kind of bad habits. So, what can you do if you want to change these habits? And essentially, how can you do it? Well, what I've found from, countless years, I'm 38, so many years of trial, tribulation, and research is there's 3 parts to building a habit. The first part is getting motivated, right? So motivation is actually, wanting to do something different. And we'll talk more depth about how to build up motivation. But basically, you need motivation to actually do something, right? So this is when you get the motivation, you now are ready to do something. And this is when you are building a routine. And I can honestly say that usually when I'm trying to break an old habit, a routine is very hard and takes a lot of effort and focus to actually implement. However, when I'm creating a new habit that I really want, my routine is usually a little easier to come up with. So after we get the motivation, we got a routine. The last step after you created all of that is the actual habit itself. And there's a lot of research out there of how long it takes to build a habit. Some people say it's 60 days, some people say it's longer. But to be honest, I don't really care. I just go until it's something that I now identify with, kind of like my name or being kind. That's when I know that I have actually built a habit, is I do it with very little thought. And obviously that's the goal, right? Um, so motivation, I know it seems pretty straightforward, uh, but how can we get more of it? Because we need that motivation to take the next step, to actually start building that routine, right? So we have this amazing chemical in our brains that helps us to actually get things done and inspire us to feel like doing something. And this magical chemical is called dopamine. And dopamine is the motivation molecule in our brains that, drives us to seek reward in achieving goals and enables us to kind of take the effort it requires to be successful. Essentially, dopamine is the chemical that makes you feel like doing something. And once we achieve a goal or results, dopamine is also the chemical that gets released that makes us feel good. So it's an amazing chemical. And, I could just go on and on about it and how much I've researched and how we can increase the dopamine. But, I kind of just want to stay within the habits here. So just know that dopamine is our friend. It helps us take action and then feel good about taking the action. So we want to do it again and again and again. This is why there is this thing called addiction. There's studies out that show that even the thought of doing something that you want can actually give you a little release of dopamine, which is great news for us because that will help us be motivated to take action. Then, after taking action and getting a little bit of a results, we will be given more dopamine again. So when we use the dopamine in the right way with the right amounts, it can be very helpful in accomplishing our goals and help us into the next step, which is building the routine. Um, this is the part where you are now doing the new thing and you're essentially changing your old way of being and acting. And yes, routines suck and are usually very uncomfortable and take a lot of discipline to implement. This is why it's so important to come up with ways to make yourself succeed when creating these new routines. But don't worry, I got your back. We're going to go over all the things you can do to set yourself up for success so your routines suck, just a little bit less. So, how can we build a routine and help that become a habit? Well, good habits are hard to form and easy to live with. Bad habits are easy to form and hard to live with. So pay attention, be aware. If we don't consciously form good ones, we will unconsciously form bad ones. And man, this is so true. I mean, how many of us in here have bad habits? I mean, if everyone's hand's not up, then I know we're all a bunch of liars because even I have bad habits. I'm just like everyone else. But I'm okay with some of my bad habits because, I'm aware of them. I know they aren't good and I'm not lying to myself. However, some of them I want to change. I mean, who has some habits that they want to change? I'm assuming all of us again, right? I mean, no one's perfect. But the saying goes, good habits are hard to form. But why are these habits so hard? Why is it so hard to form them and stick with them? Well, there's actually a reason for that, and it looks like this cycle of change. And this is why they're so hard. Change is hard, and for anyone out there that's tried to change, it's not your fault. There's the 6 steps to implementing change that is so powerful once you know where you're at in the cycle and you don't have to get so frustrated. So this is a little bit of information, so I apologize. Please stay with me here. There's 6 steps on this. Is the first step is the pre-contemplation, step 1. This is usually denial. You don't notice there's a problem. You're fine living the way you live with the habits you have. You're totally fine. Then the next step is contemplation. This phase is usually pretty bad. You notice that there's a problem, but you're not really ready to change yet. Usually you're frustrated, you know there's a problem, but you don't know how to modify it or change it. You're just aware of it and you're stuck in it and it's yucky. And be really cautious when you're here because this is where you have the self-judgment and a lot of toxic thoughts going on. So if you catch yourself here, try to push yourself as fast as possible out of the contemplation into the preparation. And this is when you are finally decide, you want to change and you come up with a plan of action to take, which luckily for us releases a little bit of dopamine because you're thinking of what you want to do. And usually you're pretty optimistic here and excited to get things moving, which is amazing because now we have more dopamine to help us take that actual action. And that's the 4th step is this is where you finally are taking action. You're finally creating new things and you're being rewarded with lots of dopamine to keep you motivated and moving forward, at least for a while. And it's fun, it's new, exciting. But what about after the novelty kind of wears off? Every good thing has to come to an end. And even dopamine starts to wither away over time of doing the same thing over and over again. Think of the first time that you learned to drive a car. How exciting and scary was that? And now, I mean, at least I do. I'll drive my car with my knees, with one hand on my cell phone and the other hand, holding a Big Mac. So it gets dull after a while. And that's what pushes you into this maintenance phase. And this can last for a long time and like years. It doesn't have to be brief. Like some people are in this maintenance phase, they figured it out, they have the habit. You're now have a full habit. You don't think about it. You're here, you're stopped thinking about it. It's not exciting. You're not given the dopamine. You just do. And you do it, you do the work, you don't mind it. It's just, part of who you are until maybe it's month 5 or year 5 and you skip a day because you don't feel like doing it. You basically just lost touch of why it's important and why you're even doing it. So that kicks you to the last step, which is the relapse, which is step 6. And this can be temporary. I've had times where I'll relapse from the gym or diet or whatever, and it's maybe a week, and other times it's months. The benefit though of don't think of when you're going through the cycle of change that once you go to relapse, that all is lost. Because the beauty of even when you go on relapse is you take all the information, all the knowledge, all the stuff that you've tried up to this point, and you get to use that to go back into a new step. So maybe you go straight into preparation, or during your relapse when you're falling, not doing it, you actually decide, you know what, I'm gonna go straight back into action. I'm ready to go. So what works really good is when you're in the relapse, is you come up with new ways to challenge yourself. That helps you, be excited to do it again. So here's an example of me at the gym. I've been going to the gym, I don't know, since I was about 18. So, I have a few years of experience, and I used to always just set my goal, and then I'd get my goal, and then I'd get in the maintenance mode and I would just get so bored. Then I'd miss one day, then I miss 2 days, then I miss a week, and then a whole month would go without me working out. And then I'd want to get back into getting a new goal. So I came up with a new plan, start all over again, and rinse and repeat this over and over for about 20 years. Now, one of the years I thought it'd be a great idea for me to become vegan. Another year I tried to gain 20 pounds. There always had to be a new challenge for me to be motivated and get started again. But this is something I wish I would have known at the beginning, that if I would have been better at being present and noticing my gains, not just my gaps, I would have been able to stay in the maintenance for so much longer. And that's kind of where I'm at now after all the years of trials is I'm so appreciative now when I go to the gym, even though I don't have these crazy goals and crazy things, like I'm so present and proud of where I'm at. So now that we know why we need to change and how to change, there's probably, a question that you guys are all thinking is, that's cool, but how do we set ourselves up to actually succeed? And that's a very good question. And, based upon lots of research, practice on my own habits, I've kind of came up with this list of everything that I've ever used to be successful in creating a habit. And there are variation of these. You can use them all. You can use just a couple, but these are all the things that I've used to be successful in keeping my habits and making them stick. So I have, you got to know your why. You got to find a way to make it fun. You got to create a system. You got to identify your deliverables, create a target and bullseye, habit stack, and finding a community. And you might be asking why. Well, knowing your why is actually your best defense against the feeling of not wanting to do something. So that's why I encourage you spend a good amount of time to answer these questions that are on the screen. If you want to take a screenshot, go ahead. But, what will happen when you get what you want? You got to know that. How will it make you feel? What will change in your life once you have it? And why do you need to start now? And what are you giving up when you decide not to do this action? When you write them down, then you can read them in the morning to remind yourself why you must do what you said you would do, regardless of how you feel. So the best question that I ask myself every day before going to the gym, when I don't feel like going and don't want to, I force myself to answer. There's two questions. Will I regret if I go to the gym right now? And usually the answer is no. Will I regret if I don't go to the gym right now? And that one, usually the answer is yes. Cool. So I guess it's time to go. I acknowledge the feeling that I have that I don't want to do it, but tell myself those feelings aren't going to help me accomplish what I truly want. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, time to go. And this is another one that helps out a lot is you have to find a way to make it fun. Otherwise you'll get bored and you won't stay consistent. So, how many of us tried to learn a new language? Have you ever tried using Duolingo? They found a great way to turn it into a game. And I found myself doing it for a lot longer because I wanted a higher score. I wanted to get to the next level. You can do the same thing with your new routine is find a way to make it fun for you and you will stay with it longer until you can actually convert that routine into a real habit that now you no longer have to think about it. So finding a way to make it fun is always going to get you better results than you trying to find the best and fastest way to do it. Because consistency is the only way to actually have lasting habits. So your system is your when, how, where, and what. When are you going to go to the gym? When are you going to start cold calling? How long are you going to do it for? What does success look like for you to be finished? Where are you going to make your calls from? So telling yourself that, I'm going to go cold call for 2 hours is a pretty good start. But what if you said, I'm going to cold call for 2 hours a day, starting at 10 a.m. after my breakfast and going to the bathroom. I'm going to go into my office, let others know not to disturb me. I'm going to turn off my cell phone, load up call tools, hit the dialer, and call for 30 minutes straight with the goal to get 2 connects. After I get 2 connects, I will set a 5-minute timer, take a break by going for a walk to think about the calls and what I could have done different and what I did well. After the 5-minute timer is done, I will sit back down and dial for another 30 minutes. Make sense? To me, that is a good system. Now, you can have the best system, but what if you get distracted? And we really need to know what your distractions are, what distracts you when you're trying to do something. And this is something that continues to grow over time. I love to keep a journal or a notebook to kind of reflect after I completed my task, to write how it went, how I felt, and what distractions or thoughts kind of came up my way that tried to pull me away from the task at hand. And this can be helpful to continue to be successful, because knowing what distracts me helps me build up a defense to remove them from my vicinity, or mentally prepare myself not to let them win next time. So by visualizing what will come up and how you will feel, you will be able to navigate those feelings and achieve what you truly want here. So let me give you an example. If you are going to cold call and you know you feel nervous or scared, acknowledge that, write it down. Then see what you want to do to get over that feeling. So most of us reach for some sort of avoidance and try to go onto our phones to feel safe, or leave the scene of the crime to feel that feeling, to leave that feeling in the room. Then we waste enough time that an hour goes by, and then we say, well, I can't cold call now because I only have 1 hour to call. I guess I'll just try again tomorrow. But what if you knew cold calling makes you feel nervous and scared, and you usually go look to your phone or try to leave the area? So now, knowing that, you can come up with a game plan to avoid this. So I know when I go to start calling, I feel this way. I want to do these things. However, I know cold calling is necessary to get to my goal of getting my first deal. So I'm going to open up the dialer. I'm going to push the dial button, even though I don't feel ready and I don't feel like doing this. So by noticing and planning, it can help you overcome so many obstacles, not just calling, not just the gym, pretty much anything in life. Notice and plan. The other thing is, we kind of talked about a little bit on the what, but you really need to dial in on what are your deliverables, not just how you're going to complete the task, but what are your deliverables for that instance, that habit. This way you can stay motivated because you know you got it done, and you actually have something that shows, oh, I did a good job, right? So if you're playing a game, you need to know how to win, right? It's the same with your habits and routines. You need to have a clear definition of what success looks like. This can change obviously over time, but regardless, you should have a clear idea of what winning for that day looks like. This way, there's no uncertainty if you did a good job or not for the day. If your goal was to call for 2 hours, you did it. Great. Maybe you want to add to your deliverables, call for 2 hours, which entails dialing 200 numbers or have a minimum of 2 contacts in the 2 hours. That is a good deliverable. It's specific and measurable. And at the end of the day, you can look back and say, oh my gosh, I did it. Good job. Or no, I didn't. How can I improve? What came up? Was there distractions? What happened that prevented me from getting my goal? And this is the reason why we want to have two. I call it a target and a bullseye. So, how many people have ever played darts? I mean, I'm not very good at darts, but I've played a few times before. So, for us beginners, the goal usually of throwing darts is just to hit the bullseye, right? We always are just aiming for the bullseye. So we throw the dart, we aim for the bullseye every throw, but what happens after the first throw? There's a pretty low chance we're good enough to hit the actual bullseye. But if I'm throwing a dart and I just get it on the board, I'm pretty excited. If I throw and hit the bullseye, man, I'm even more excited. So we can do the same practice with every routine or habit you create. So come up with what is your ideal scenario, and then come up with this minimum requirement. So if you're cold calling, maybe your goal is to dial for 2 hours. But since it's your first week and you've never called anyone before, you set your bullseye at 2 hours. Perfect. That's a dream. But you set your target at 10 dials. That way, when you complete 10 dials, you can be proud of yourself for getting the dart on the board. And that is good enough to get started. And that will keep you motivated to try again the next day rather than beating yourself up for not hitting the bullseye the first time. Here's another habit that works really well for me is I call it stacking it up. And I think they might have talked about this in Atomic Habits. I don't know if anyone's read that, but I've heard it's a good book. I never actually read it. But one of the best ways that I've implemented this stack it up is with my morning meditation. I don't exactly love doing it. It's hard to commit to doing every morning. So what I did was thought of a routine that I have every morning that I do without thought or effort. For me, it was drinking coffee. So I told myself if I wanted to drink my coffee in the morning, I had to finish my meditation first. Then I earned the right to have the coffee. So this is also worked really good for me when I wanted to start to run 10 minutes a day every weekday. I kept trying to run, right after my workouts, but I was always so tired that I didn't want to do it. And during the day, I was too busy. I had all the excuses in the world. So I thought of what I do every day without compromise. And for me, going to the gym is an easy habit. I do it 5 days a week. So I decided to stack my gym with 10 minutes of running every single day. So I would go to the gym and force myself to stand on the treadmill for 10 minutes and run before I earn the right to go upstairs and start my workout. So if you're trying to cold call people or make connects or do anything, maybe you always eat lunch at a certain time every day, or you go on social media every day at the same time. So tell yourself you have to call for 2 hours to earn the right to eat or to go on social media. Do the new task first, then earn the right to do the old habit. And one of the last ones is finding a community can help you stay motivated. It can also help you build new systems, have accountability, share frustrations, and just so much more. Being around like-minded people has helped me grow in so many aspects of my life, just like JJ's doing here, helping so many people out. Knowing that there's people that you can share what you're going through and you can reach out to see how they overcame their difficulties. You can bounce ideas off them as so valuable. And from an evolutionary standpoint, we are kind of programmed to want to be in these tribes or communities. So when we're around others, our brains release another chemical called oxytocin. It's that love hormone that we have. And when we help others, we also get this, what they call a helper's high. And that's from a release of dopamine. So being in a community helps with getting both of those, which can keep you motivated to keep going. So this is why being in a community is so helpful. It can make you feel so good and inspired. So if you don't already have a community, obviously you guys do, since you're in JJ's, look for, other areas that you might want to jump in other communities, or just be active in this one so you don't feel alone and isolated, because there's a really good chance someone else has gone through the exact same frustrations and issues that you're dealing with that can help you get out of that funk and keep you moving, which gets us to this next part of your mindset matters. It's as simple as that. You can have all the tools, but if you don't think it, then, there's nothing you can do about it. Like it says, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. It's up to you. Just as your car runs more smoothly and requires less energy to go faster and farther when their wheels are in perfect alignment, you perform better when your thoughts, feelings, emotions, goals, and values are in balance. So you have to have your mind right to perform right, which sounds good, but how do you do this? And well, you have to learn to manage your feelings, whether you believe in them or not. I assure you, I try to block them out for 30 years of my life. They are real and they are there. And at some point, you are going to have to deal with them. And yeah, these feelings are actually just chemicals that are being released in your brain, and based upon your perception of things and what's happened in the environment and what we were exposed to. But that's a whole different subject. I don't want to go too detailed about that. But the fact of the matter is, these feelings are very strong and can stop you dead in your track. So, for example, you have reviewed your why and you're feeling motivated. You have an amazing system and plan laid out. You've identified all your distractions and how you're going to overcome them. You know what your deliverables are for the task. You found a way to habit stack. You have an amazing community that you shared your ideas and plans with, and they think you're amazing. So now it's time to take action. But there's this feeling of fear, or a feeling that maybe you don't know enough yet, that is telling you you shouldn't do this and you don't really feel like doing this now. Maybe you'll do it later. I'm going to tell you right now, this is totally normal for any time you are making change. I'm going to say it again. Change is uncomfortable and takes energy. Staying the same is easy and takes little energy. What the saying is, an object in motion stays in motion, right? We are now pushing this object in a totally new direction, and that's going to take a little bit of force. So don't expect it to feel good or be easy. Some days it will be easy, some days it won't. I want to address the days that are hard and you don't feel like doing it. Those days, you have to just take control and acknowledge it's going to be hard and uncomfortable. And the feeling you are feeling is just that, a feeling. It's not the end of the world. And I can assure you, after you do take action, you will feel so much better and proud of yourself. So what's the secret to taking action when you don't feel like it? Well, use your body to quiet your mind. Count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then move. Start moving, doing the task, even though you don't feel like it. Try negotiating with yourself. Tell yourself you'll do it for just 10 minutes, but then take a break. But don't sit there and dwell on how you feel. Use your body to get in motion to change your emotion. So I've dealt with this a lot, and a lot of my clients always want to find out, how do I avoid this infamous relapse phase of change? And trust me, I still haven't found the secret to it, but here are a few ways to help yourself limit, your relapse phase, either shorten the time you're falling or postpone the time that you kind of get into that state. The first thing is constantly change things up. Find a way to be flexible. This is very important to help you really find success and build a habit. So if you only call at 10 a.m. every day and you have a doctor's appointment at, let's say, 10 a.m. one day, then you will say, that's it. I can't call today because that's my time to call. So it's a really good practice if you can change up your routine to be more flexible. So example, if you always call at 10 a.m., get that consistent, for 4 weeks, get it built in, then try to call at a little bit different time in the day, like maybe 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock. This will help you build a real habit of calling rather than just a habit of only calling at 10 a.m. every single day. I had to do this with me in the gym. I used to only go at 5. And if I couldn't go at 5, like let's say it was 5:15, I'd be like, oh, my whole day's ruined. But now I've built up a good enough habit that I can actually go to the gym at any time of the day. It just has to get done. The second one is give yourself lots and lots of praise for your achievements. It's impossible to be upset when you're being grateful. Don't focus on the gap, focus on the gains and how far you have come. Tell yourself you are proud of yourself and be excited that you are being consistent. And the last one is, this one helps out a lot, is defining what failure is. This has had a huge impact for myself by identifying what failure is, I now have something to measure to determine if I actually failed, rather than just thinking that I did. For example, if my goal is to go to the gym for 5 days a week and I skipped a day and only got 4 days, is that really failure? And do I have to start back at step 3 or 4? No, that's still a good week. So I came up with my target, what my target was for failure. So for me, if I get to the gym 3 days out of 5, that's a good amount of time. And if I can do that, then I should still be proud of myself. So yeah, my 5 days is my bullseye, right? But 3 days is essentially my target, and I can still be happy about that. So knowing what your quote unquote spiral or failure looks like, you can now identify it quicker and you can course correct. If it's Friday and I've only completed one workout, I know that this weekend I get to go to the gym to make up for those lost days. Okay, so I don't know if everyone's with me still, but let's say you got the habits, you understand all of this. I just threw this in that because a lot of people ask me this, at the end of talks and stuff of, okay, I understand all that, but Creighton, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I know how to build habits, I know, but I just don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do? So, this is what I came up with is I've been there. I knew I wanted to gain weight. I knew I wanted rental properties, but I just didn't know what I was supposed to do. So here's the tips that I have for anyone out there that's trying to figure that out. First, research someone that's already done what you want to do. Either contact them, pay them for help, or just stalk them and find out where they started. They say success always leaves clues. So your job should be to be Sherlock Holmes and find all the clues that they left behind so you can do the exact same things that they did to get the same results. Research them until you find something that they did and mimic it. So when I started in real estate, I listened to Bigger Pockets and I heard people would evaluate one property a day. So I started that habit. I went and tried something. And I love this saying of try and see. Go do something, not expecting it to be the answer, but do it to find better answers. So go make a mistake to know what not to do. It's better than sitting and wondering about everything. Go find something to do, go mess it up until you find something else that's better. And if at some point you run out of things to do, then go back to the drawing board, research again until you find a new action to take, and just keep repeating and repeating and repeating this. And you will never, ever run out of things to do. So here's my last example. This is Sixplex that we own. And I want to talk to you about the habits that it took for us to acquire the Sixplex. And obviously, my thing here is habits are the goal. It's not the results. So when I started to look into multifamily units, I started to evaluate them just one at a time. Every day, I try to look at one. And every day, none were worth buying. After a few weeks, I was, really discouraged and didn't really know why I was even doing this. So I had to attach my why to not rely on my company to control my financial situation. I kind of talked about that. So now I remembered why it's important, but I did just a few weeks of it and I really had nothing to show. So maybe I thought if I had something to show, it wouldn't be so frustrating. So I started to track each property to have, some sort of tangible thing to see at the end of the week. And at the end of the week, I noticed I had 10 properties I evaluated. Okay. I was essentially just creating my system. So now my goal was to get another 10 properties evaluated by the end of the week. 10 properties was now my minimum target, but it was becoming a game rather than only looking for properties that did work, I was now playing a game to see, how many I could actually analyze a week. There were weeks where I was like, dang, I want to get to 100 by the end of the week. So I would analyze, 20 properties that week. The more I analyzed, the better I got and found ways to improve my system and processes. And as you can see here, I turn my tracker spreadsheet into my calculator so I can see if it was a good deal and track it all in one step. So after about 200 properties, I built out this great system. And then I had a virtual assistant actually take over, and they started to enter all the properties that were sent to me, by realtors. At the end of the week, I would sift through the data to find properties that I wanted more information on. And long story short, as you can see here in the blue highlight, on 405, that is the property that we finally ended up buying. So it took us 400 properties to go through to find one that we bought. And this one, I think we got it under contract. I think it says here for the purchase price was 335. I think we purchased it for 335, but after we went into contract, I think it was this one, that there's a lot of electrical issues, and we negotiated it down to 300. And now I think it's worth like 800 and something. But the story behind this is, I remember when I bought this, people would come to me and say, wow, how did you find this amazing sixplex? That's such a great deal. And I'd be like, I found it on the MLS. And they're like, no, there's not a good property on the MLS. And I go, there's 1 out of 400. If you have the right habits, you're going to get the right results. So that is all that I have. Here's my contact. Hopefully some people are still awake, and that was semi-useful. JJ.
Creighton, that was fantastic, brother. I love the slides, love the motivation, love the focus. Yeah, mindset is so very huge. I think you really knocked it out of the park. Got some really great stuff there. If
Thanks,
you guys
Mark.
are watching the call, actually, before we move on, I want to ask a question that I kind of like to ask to everybody, all the speakers, when we come onto the call. Before we go to the breakout rooms, my group is a networking group. It's about, I try and, preach about building relationships, but what do you see as the importance of networking for the real estate investor in building their business?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah, it's a question to you.
Oh, networking's everything. I wish going back in life, someone would have told me how powerful networking is. I mean, I have realtor or real estate investing friends that are way better off than I am. And it always comes back to who you know. Like, and even my wife with her, my wife has a staging business that she's grown. And everything that she's accomplished, like she has so many friends, so many people in high places. Like it always comes back to who you know and who can help you when you're having a hard time. So network is everything. I just want to keep saying that over and over, that it is so important. And lead with, I think it was there's one of the persons that started me in this whole everything journey was a guy named Jeff Woods. I don't know if anyone listens to I think he does the One Thing podcast now, but before the One Thing, he actually used to do his own podcast that was called The Mentee. And it's an amazing podcast. It's really old now, but it was his journey of him trying to be a mentee towards other people. Like he would be the mentee for mentors. But my favorite saying that's helped me out so much is anytime I'm talking to people or even my clients now is I want to be more interesting or more interested than interesting. That's his saying. So go into it. Don't bring your agenda. Don't try to spit on other people. Just be interested in them. And you'll get so much more out of it rather than, and this is how I used to be, is I was so transactional. And this goes back, back to more mindset. I was so impatient. Everything had to be fast. Like I needed it done yesterday. And if I wasn't doing it, then it's not fast enough. And how can this person help me? And it was just everything I was doing was so forced because I didn't know how to calm myself down and just be patient and just be in the moment. And ever since I got into meditation and all this other stuff, like it's just so much more freeing. And I don't feel like I'm forcing everything and trying to just use everyone and trying to use every second of my time. So that's a big answer, but
Yeah, that's huge. One of my favorite sayings, and what you just said ties into it, as I say all the time, chase a relationship, don't chase the deal.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's perfect. That's probably a paraphrase of my whole thing.
Yeah, it's
Do what JJ said.
do what JJ said. So that's cool. So we're about to get to the breakout rooms, followed by the Q&A. If you guys are on the call, please don't go anywhere. The breakout rooms are awesome. If
I
you
do
guys are
have a
watching-
hard stop at in about 10-15 minutes. I gotta
Okay,
take
not a
my
problem.
kids to the gym. So
No problem. If you guys are watching the call right now on YouTube, please feel free to leave a comment and like Creighton's presentation. It's going to help us.
yeah, give me feedback too. I mean, if you guys thought it was a snooze fest, I mean, I saw in the timer, I think I was talking for like 40 minutes. Like if you're bored out of your mind, I can handle it. I've done so much personal development stuff, like I can handle constructive criticism. So yeah, give me whatever feedback that you have, and maybe put it on JJ's page, and I won't stop you. You'll be fine. I appreciate it though.
Yeah, we'll be posting this all over social media as well as to my group, and it's going to be on the YouTube channel. So please look for it there as well. Everybody else, hang tight. We're gonna sign out for now. On behalf of Creighton and myself, thank you guys for joining us. We're going to have more guest speakers coming up in August and September, and we're actually booked into October. So hang tight. We got more phenomenal people coming up in the future. Creighton, thank you so much, my friend.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for making this happen, for all the work obviously you're putting in to do this. So actually, I will say, while you were doing your Facebook, I was like, oh, I don't need that Facebook 101 nonsense. Like I know I've been in Facebook since Facebook started, and you were doing it, and I pulled up my page. I was like, oh crap, I got to change all this stuff. So so thank you. And here's another tip for a mindset thing is be curious, don't be certain. I felt that when I approach things with curiosity like this, because I was curious about what JJ had to say about Facebook, it allowed me to change and improve. But if you go into things, oh, I'm certain this is how it's going to be, you're certainly going to stay where you're at and certainly not grow.
Everybody, thank you for joining us on the call today. Don't forget to like the video, comment on the video. If you guys are on the call, don't go away. We're going to take some questions, have some Q&A in the breakout rooms. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining us. To see you guys soon. Over and out.